What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Jon Jones' coach confirms retirement after UFC 309. Dana White has continued to push the narrative that Jon Jones could end up fighting Tom Aspinall in 2025, like a gazillion fans want. But as UFC 309 approaches, there's more signs that Jones will actually be calling it a wrap on his fighting days this month. Jones is preparing to fight former heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic at the November 16th event, marking the first time Bones has competed since he won the heavyweight title by quickly submitting Ciryl Gane last year. Although there have been widespread calls for the winner of the Jones-Miocic fight to battle Aspinall next, Bones has repeatedly acknowledged UFC 309 will likely be his last dance in the octagon. The former light heavyweight champ's striking coach, Brandon Gibson, recently spoke with MMA Fighting, and while doing so, he also confirmed that UFC 309 will likely mark the last time we see Jones fight. Whenever Jon's ready to retire, I'm right there with him. I'm approaching this one like it's our last go. It's our last rodeo. I think physically, mentally, he could go in there and have 5 or 6 more great performances, Gibson said. There's nothing left for Jon to prove. I think he really wants this fight with Stipe. I think this fight will help solidify Jon's status as that great heavyweight champion. But it's not something we talk about every night at the gym. We're definitely all eyes on November 16th. But each time I go to a practice, I'm approaching it as this is my last camp. I'm giving it my all. And while discussing the narrative that Jones will feel compelled to fight Aspinall since he's such a competitor, Gibson said, "There's always going to be a next #1 contender. There's never going to be a perfect time to walk out. Somebody will always say, but you didn't fight that guy. To me, it doesn't matter." Now, sure, all this could be a bargaining ploy by Jones to get the UFC to shell out massive dollars for him to fight Aspinall if he beats Miocic. But when you consider Jones is 37, the fact he could have reversed course and called for a fight with Aspinall earlier this year, it certainly seems like this could be it, right? What do you think? Will UFC 309 be the last time we see Jones throw hands in the octagon? Or are you still going to keep a candle lit in the hope that we see Bones face Aspinall? Belal Muhammad goes off on Conor McGregor. Following the news that Belal Muhammad is no longer going to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov at UFC 310, it wasn't long before Conor McGregor took the opportunity to light up the welterweight champion. Well, not surprisingly, Muhammad and his camp have fired back at the brash and polarizing star. Recently, Muhammad revealed that he's battling a nasty bone infection, and as a result, he will not face Rakhmonov on December 7th. When McGregor came upon that news, he laid into the rugged fighter big time. In social media posts that McGregor proceeded to delete, here's some of what he had to say about Muhammad's withdrawal. "Scudder talk just like you're fighting. You lambasted UFC world champions multiple times on having to reschedule their bouts through injury, and now it has come down on you like a bomb from the sky. It is glorious to see. No fight, no money, but staph infection. Bum, stripped instantly. 0 knockdowns / any excitement or traffic or views or ticket sales in bouts. And now also non-reliable to show? Strip, cut, infected fighter. You have infections." Muhammad's manager, Ali Abdelaziz, didn't hold back while responding to his longtime enemy. Not only did he claim McGregor is an addict, he brought up his devastating loss to his greatest foe, Khabib Nurmagomedov. "Conor McGregor, you can never be even 10% of the man Belal is. He's the sitting welterweight champion. You're a sitting alcoholic drug addict who ran from Michael Chandler. You were never the same after Khabib. He ruined you." The welterweight champion followed up on his manager's comments with this fiery jab at Conor. You know Conor went and did a line after reading that and has been pacing around his house talking to himself shadowboxing in the mirror for the past 7 hours. Conor responded to that with a bomb, skull, and laughing emoji. But all this comes at a time when McGregor continues to take verbal fire from all angles. Not only because of his withdrawal from UFC 303 due to a broken toe and continued speculation as to whether he'll ever fight again, but apparently he was mocked by Newcastle United while attending their match in Newcastle against Arsenal. Conor has said he's a Manchester United fan, but since he's been seen meeting and hanging out with Arsenal players, Newcastle took the opportunity to jeer him when their club beat the Gunners. How it started versus how it's going. Hope you enjoyed your trip to St. James Park, Conor McGregor. Doesn't sound like we'll see Newcastle United sending Conor a jersey anytime soon. Derrick Lewis update after pulling out. There's been concern in the MMA world regarding why Derrick Lewis pulled out of UFC Edmonton so late, as well as speculation, but it sounds like the feared slugger is doing okay. Lewis was supposed to fight Jonata Denise at Saturday's event, and at the early weigh-ins on Friday, the Black Beast made weight, so all signs at that juncture pointed to the heavyweight scrap going down. But not long after Lewis was a no-show for the ceremonial weigh-ins, the UFC announced that Lewis had withdrawn due to a medical issue. The statement also said the issue was not related to weight cutting, which prompted speculation online as to what the problem was. Since then, the heavyweight champ's coach, Bob Perez, posted this via social media. As you know, Derrick was not medically cleared to fight tonight. It's a medical issue unrelated to weight cutting. He is doing fine. Thank you for reaching out to check on him. While of course it's good to hear that Lewis is doing well, it's still not clear what the issue was. UFC executive Dave Shaw was also asked about Derrick's withdrawal during the post-fight presser, and he had no additional information to offer.
There's really no update beyond what the official release was, which was a non-fight related medical issue, or not weight cut related medical issue. Yeah, I mean, I think the situation yesterday was all happening in real time. So we didn't actually have enough answers at the point of the ceremonial weigh-ins yesterday. He weighed in yesterday morning. He had to cut a bit, but that's not uncommon for him. And then over the course of the afternoon, started to get medical treatment, and we just didn't have any answers. And so at that point, it made most sense for us to, proceed with the weigh-ins with Janice, and try to figure out what was going on before making any decisions. But listen, there's no substitute for taking the safe road when it comes to the athlete health and safety. So it was the right decision for him not to compete.
Meanwhile, it didn't take long for the UFC to find Denise a new scrap, as during the broadcast it was announced he's going to battle Marcin Tybura at the upcoming November 16th card. So that's good news for Denise, but somewhat interesting that the Lewis fight couldn't be moved to November 16th, right? Alex Pereira still hurt after UFC 307. With Belal Muhammad now out of UFC 310, a lot of folks are still hoping that Alex Pereira will once again save the day and agree to fight at the December 7th event, but the cards continued to stack up against that happening. Following the news of the welterweight title fight cancellation, it was reported the UFC was not looking at having Pereira step in. After Poatan took out Khalil Roundtree Jr. just last month, he said he planned on taking a much-deserved break. Pereira referenced that a March return date would be ideal, and during a recent appearance on the Podpa podcast, Pereira reported he incurred a hand injury at UFC 307 and that he's still not 100%. In that fourth round, I was throwing jabs and it was hurting my hand, man. I swear, I was thinking my hand must be broken. It still hurts today. So given all this, it would seem pretty unlikely if we see Pereira fighting on the year-end pay-per-view card. He and his team almost certainly want to make sure that when he faces Magomed Ankalaev, he's had a full training camp and that he's fully healthy. Speaking of a well-deserved break, Pereira also recently turned to his homeland of Brazil and visited with his indigenous tribe. Check it out. It wasn't too long before Magomed Ankalaev saw the videos on social media and reacted by saying, "Who guys want to see me fight next? Hashtag voodoo, hashtag running Alex. Focus on MMA voodoo is not gonna help you, my son. I promise all my friends I'm going to punish this guy. I will knock him out, inshallah." He then reacted to ESPN's tweet saying, "Fake news, I'm the only one who was ready for December, but he deserved rest." He followed it up with tweeting at Alex saying, "Alex Pereira, he lost 10 times when I beat him. This is gonna be something very normal for him. He's a good loser, and I'll make it easy. For him, he know how to give up. Mick Maynard and Dana White, they know this. We have deal. I will KO him." And later, he went on to seemingly confirm he will fight Jamal Hill next by saying, "Jamal Hill will be knocked out. His next, he's actually terrible." So are we getting Jamal Hill versus Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 310? What do you guys think about this fight? Let us know down in the comment section below. Dave Shaw provides good news on UFC Apex events. If you're a fan of the UFC holding fight night cards at the Apex facility, in other words, one of the minority at this juncture, well, good news. Apex events are not going away. As you likely know, the Apex became the go-to venue for the UFC during the pandemic, and it's continued to host events regularly. While initially a lot of fans seemed to embrace the venue, after all, we all wanted to see fights, over time, people are eager to have the energy only arena cards can facilitate. But during the post-fight presser for UFC Edmonton, which was a fight night card, UFC exec Dave Shaw was asked about the future of Apex cards. And Dave Shaw acknowledged that more fight night cards are going to be hosted in cities around the world, but the Apex will remain a host venue.
Yeah, there will be. There'll be an increased number of events outside of the Apex relative to this year as we get into the 2025 schedule.
With that said, is there always going to be a certain number of Apex events moving forward? Like, it will always be maybe one a month? Or
yeah, I mean, it's tough for us to anticipate what 2 or 3 years down the road it's going to look like, but it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of fighters in Vegas. It's easy for us operationally. It's obviously, simple from a budgetary perspective. The the rigor and the pressure and how laborious it can be to be on the road. I mean, you guys know it. You're week in, week out with us and other promotions. It's tough, and so I think having home games and being in the Apex where you can just turn off the lights and lock the door. It makes a lot of sense for us. So will we ever get back to pre-COVID of no Apex? I don't think so, but I think we're going to find the right balance for us.
Shaw also reported during the presser that the UFC plans to hold more cards in Europe once its current broadcasting deal is up and they've signed a new one.
Are there more plans? Yes, we're going to be back in the UK next year. Whether that's Dublin, probably London for us next year, and then as we get through next year, which is sort of the last year of our current media deal in the US, and we start to plan out what we want to do in 2026 and beyond in terms of the number of international events that we can have, the intention is to be able to go back to Europe more often.
That prompted Robert Joyner to provide this interesting analysis of Shaw's comments. Reading between the lines, the next media deal won't be strictly tied to taking place during American time zones, allowing more European dates. Meaning an outlet like Netflix or Amazon, worldwide in scope, is being looked at as the favorite to land UFC rights. Do you agree with this take? Given how many stars and champions the UFC now have that are from Europe, just look at Tom Aspinall and Ilia Topuria, you would think that the UFC wants to hold more cards across the pond. Manel Kape calls out Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno has likely silenced any doubters at UFC Edmonton that he remains a world-class flyweight, and the former champion understands why. Following his consecutive losses to Alexandre Pantoja and Brandon Royval, Moreno faced rising flyweight Amir Albazi on Saturday and put on a striking clinic. After 5 rounds of action, there was no doubt Moreno would have his hand raised. Well, while talking with the media afterward, Moreno acknowledged that he had all cylinders firing in the octagon.
Tonight I was on fire. Tonight I wasn't worried about nothing, okay? I don't know, I was telling that because with Royval, I feel like my mind wasn't there, I wasn't automatic, just fighting, throwing punches, doing whatever. But tonight, again, everything was connected. Every piece was in the right place, and I was ready to fight with everybody if it was necessary.
Moreno certainly wasn't the only one who thought the Mexican star looked on point in the UFC Edmonton headliner. Case in point, check out what Aljamain Sterling had to say about Moreno's performance.
Much love to Brandon Moreno, masterclass performance. If that Moreno shows up against Brandon Royval, I think it's a different fight.
And the current flyweight king, Alexandre Pantoja, posted this while tipping his hat to the fact that he's defeated Moreno 3 times. Very good fight, my son. It'll be interesting to see what comes next for Moreno. One man who's already raised his hand to fight the former champion is Manel Kape. Following the event, the dangerous contender shared this via social media. I'd like to see Moreno stand like that in front of me. I would make him dance the chicken dance, but we have to give the credits good performance. Meanwhile, a battered and bruised Albazi released a post-fight video in which he congratulated Moreno on his win, before vowing he'll be back.
But Brandon Moreno was a better man tonight. It's not our night. But like he said, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. I would be back. I would be back better than this.
It'll be fascinating to see how Albazi looks in his next fight for sure. Do you still view him as a potential title contender? The MMA community reacts to Michael Chandler's insane body transformation. Chandler shared to Instagram and Twitter showing off his new physique ahead of his match against Charles Oliveira at UFC 309. Here's what the MMA world had to say to Chandler. What's motivating you to be in this good of shape? It has to be more than the title because at 38, this is insane. Chandler's response: the title and a calling to take what I do seriously. Anything worth doing is worth doing correctly. Hold the standard. Peptides and SARMs are going well. When the juice man gets more juice. That's some all-American muscle right there. Absolute unit. Secret juice. Post USADA, folks. So this is what you've been doing for 2 years. Bro, this physique is crazy. Chandler by KO. Charles Oliveira might get a cut above his eyebrow soon. We're approaching closer and closer to the fight. Chandler is looking dangerous. Nick Diaz gets exposed for scamming fans on Cameo. Nick Diaz is allegedly scamming fans on Cameo by sending them 3-second videos with a black screen after they paid him over $200 for custom videos. One fan who paid for the Cameo said, "Scam. Nick Diaz is a scammer. Sent the 3-second black video with static in the back. What a loser. Don't go on this website if you don't want to do it and just use people for their money, weirdo. Tried to do something nice for a loved one and spent way too much money on this weirdo, man." Another fan who paid for a Cameo said, "Are you kidding me? A 3-second video of a black screen and talking in the background? Get off the drugs, Nick. Kids look up to you. What a disgrace. Video for a 14-year-old birthday to a kid who absolutely idolizes you. And this is what you give? Absolute ripoff." The MMA world also weighed in on the situation by saying, "The funniest thing is I'm sure his intentions are pure. He's probably just too high to work it out properly. I don't know why people bother with Nick. Dude's a walking vegetable." If you taught a child to look up to Nick Diaz, that's your fault. The MMA community went to bat for him when he got an unjust suspension. It got lifted, and he rewarded us by literally staying away from fighting longer than the initial suspension. That 36-year-old buying a gift for his inner 14-year-old that idolizes Nick Diaz was pretty upset. Years ago, I ordered a couple shirts from their merch store. They never came. $209 for that? Holy ish. All people have to do is look at his past cameos to see he doesn't understand nor care to understand how Cameo works, and he's brain dead. So that's kind of on them. That said, filing a transaction dispute with their bank would probably bring about hilarious results. Not just this, but I ordered some merch off a store and it just never came. No update or contact after they took my money. Top comments. UFC judges shouldn't be allowed to bet on fights. That's just straight up corruption. I've been complaining about the judges for years. There's no consistency, and their justifications on some ruling is mind-boggling. Sitting one reason why a person lost, then turning around and sitting that same thing for why the other guy won. If the judge reffing was fair, Jon would already be a faint memory after dropping 4 to 5 in a row, then getting cut. I hate Jon Jones, seems dirty, and caught cheating on multiple occasions. I hate how he's playing the Stipe fight like he's taking on the GOAT after 5 years off. Feels like Jake taking on Tyson way out of his prime. But I do support the idea of quitting before you're washed and just clinging onto something that's gone. We don't need more Tonys. Jones talking tough while ducking Aspinall, coward.